saying goodbye to a friend, Apple event speculation, Apple password resets, and alarms not alarming. This is MacVoices. Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by Backblaze. MacVoices listeners get a fully featured no-risk free trial at backblaze.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, it's MacVoices Live after 2 weeks dark because of schedule conflicts of mine. I'm so sorry about that, but it just sometimes that just happens. But we are back with more conversation about Apple and tech and all kind of things. So with that, I wanted to just say let's go around the table, find out who's here, have a couple announcements, and then we'll get on with the show. In the top left corner of my screen, as always, Mr. David Ginsburg. David, great to see you as always.
Great to see you as well, Chuck. Yeah, I was going through MacVoices Live withdrawal. I'm so glad we're back here having some good conversations tonight.
That's a good way to say it, David. I agree. Even though I was very, at the time we would usually do the show, I was very busy. I admit, I looked at my watch and thought, darn, we should be doing the show.
Yeah.
So, but hey, we're doing it now. Marty Jencius is here as well. Marty, good to have you back.
I love doing this. I had that emptiness on last Tuesday when we recorded or didn't record live. So it's good to be back.
Well, we'll see if we can get everything filled back up and top off your tank or something.
Good.
Speaking of topping off your tank, in just from a bike ride, Mr. Jim Ray. Jim, good to see you with a new chapeau.
I also had a schedule conflict, but nobody cares about that. And yeah, actually, last Tuesday, I was, at the time of the show, I was in Carmel watching the sunset, and I was not missing any of this.
If you were in Carmel, I'm not even insulted by that. I would probably, if I had been in Carmel, I would not have been missing it either.
Yeah, I don't think you would have.
No. Jeff Gamet, I'm so tempted to try to do something with a sunset, but I'm afraid of what he'll do with it. So I'm just going to say, Jeff, good to see you.
You could have done something along the lines of, well, once the sunset starts, that a full moon can't be far behind, or I don't know.
It's exactly what I was afraid might happen. That's why I didn't do it.
I was just kind of spitballing here. Although, anytime you have the opportunity to be someplace beautiful and watch the sunset, that should be your priority.
Agreed. Last but not least, no sunset, but a new bird, Mr. Eric Bolden. Eric, good to see you.
Good to be here. Yeah, it's spring, so it's the time for the eastern bluebirds to come out, and it's the bird was waiting for the show to start too. It's sitting there, and its ears out. It's been waiting for 2 weeks, right in that spot.
Well, I admit I learned something. I didn't know that. I mean, I'm in the East, and I've never seen a bluebird like that. So I don't know the Eastern what, but if it's the Eastern bluebird, okay. I've learned something new for the evening. So unfortunately, we're going to start out with something that is a little bit not so great, but I feel like we have to acknowledge it. And I would have acknowledged it last week had we been here. But last week, we all found out that we lost Charles Edge. If you don't know Charles, go back and look at some of the old MacVoices interviews that I did with him. He was pretty much of a regular on our holiday gift guide shows. He was just a great guy. I met Charles for the first time in 2014 when he did take control of OS X server, and we did an interview about it. And through the years, we talked about a number of his books, a number of his projects, and his podcast. He was incredibly prolific. He was a geek's geek in the truest sense, because he authored all kind of blog posts, as I said, podcasts, books, just an amazing volume of work. it strikes me that, we're all, some of us anyway, are starting to approach that age where we start to lose friends. This one, though, was quite unexpected. Charles was only in his late 40s, and he just always had a smile on his face. He loved Dungeons and Dragons, and he always tried to drag me into playing Dungeons and Dragons whenever we would connect. He never succeeded, which may be my loss. But I feel like he's part of the MacVoices family. He's never been on MacVoices Live, I don't believe, but he was part of the MacVoices family. And so I want to just say, Charles, thank you for everything you did for the Mac community, the Mac sysops community. He's just going to be missed an awful lot. So I don't know, gentlemen, did any of you all know Charles? I think some of you had been on at least some of the holiday gift guides with Charles.
Well, I suppose I'll start then.
Jim?
You did miss out by not taking up on Dungeons and Dragons, just because you would have had a wonderful time playing with him outside of our tech world. I never had the opportunity to do that with him either, and now I will forever regret not having that opportunity. But he was awesome, and every conference where our paths crossed, it was always a delight. So he'll be missed.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. So that's sort of the down. We wanted to get that out of the way, but I just felt like we could not, recognize that our community has lost someone that was very important to it at a very untimely age. So moving on to the next thing that I wanted to talk about is a whole lot more positive. I'm happy to say that Marty Jencius and Eric Bolden have decided to create their very own Apple Vision Pro podcast. So, gentlemen, congratulations. I think that one episode's out, the second one's in the can. Do I have that correct?
Second one's out as of last night. Yeah.
Great.
We're trying to keep a brisk and regular pace of weekly short 30-minute kinds of podcasts around it, with some structure, inviting lots of guests in that we've discovered through other social Vision Pro apps that are out there, where you can meet groups of people and get them involved, including developers and people who support some of the apps. So it's a lot of fun. It's the kind of energy I needed right now in my point in my work and my career. Eric's great because, Eric always adds some depth to the conversation and has a good look at it, a different look at it. So it's fun to work with him. And we like to think that, we met on your show, Chuck. You brought us together. So, Eric?
Muted, Eric.
He doesn't always have something to say.
There you go.
There we go.
I poked my finger, I blinked my eye, nothing happened. Well, what I was going to say was I couldn't have said it better, and evidently I couldn't. I was muted. So yeah, I agree with everything you said. And it's a fun show. There's so much out there, so much that I don't think anybody really thought about. And I've been surprised each week with just what people have come up with, software-wise, or things to do, things to try. There are weeks I really regret sharing my Apple Vision Pro with two other people.
Well, that's
buy them out.
Yeah, that's. I have an idea that Eric may become a solo Apple Vision Pro owner sooner rather than later because of the podcast.
Yeah. And Chuck, thank you for doing a little MacVoices piece with us last night on it. Where coming up, listeners can hear more about it. The podcast is simply called Vision Profiles, and look for it on any of your podcast machines.
So that's something I wanted to make sure that we did. To get the URL and also to confirm that the podcast is out there in all of I know it's in the directory I use, but it is in all of the directories that I've looked at.
Yeah. Yeah. The URL is visionprofiles.info. And I'm still piecing together parts of that, but you can get some basic information there about the show. But you can find Vision Profiles as a podcast in most of your all of your podcast search engines if you want.
Great.
Should have some in touch with iOS listeners too. I mentioned it last week.
Yep. Thank you,
Yeah,
Dave. I know you sent that me.
Yeah. So, Eric, yeah, Marty just said it. But tomorrow's Mac Voices will feature Marty and Eric and my conversation about their podcast, their motivations, what they're doing with it, and even maybe offer up a couple of little favorite apps for those of you who own the Vision Pro. So check it out. Of course, by the time that most of you hear this in the feeds, it will be already out. But for the folks that are here tonight, look for it in tomorrow's Mac Voices. And yeah, it was a great conversation, a lot of fun. That's why we're not going to talk more about it. I'd love, what happened last night. I wanted to get into so many questions, but it's like, no, we just got to back it off because that's why we want people to go and listen to the podcast. But hopefully it'll whet your appetite for it. Today's Mac Voices is supported by Backblaze. Mac Voices listeners get a fully featured, no-risk free trial at backblaze.com/macvoices. Go right now and see how easy it is to protect yourself from nasty little surprises. Spring is here, at least where I am. That means, among other things, the inevitable spring cleaning. This year, though, I want you to think about spring cleaning not as getting rid of things, but rather about keeping important things. Things like your photos, your financial records, that business plan that's going to make you rich. Yes, I'm talking about backups. And when you think backups, you should think Backblaze. With Backblaze in your corner, you tick off several of the components of a successful backup strategy. Components like having your data off-site and secure, like having your data backed up as often as you select, including constantly, like being able to access your backups from anywhere, anytime, via the Backblaze apps, and more. Backblaze is an essential part of my personal and professional backup strategy, and it should be part of yours too. Unlimited storage, deleted file and version retention, automatic throttling, threading, all automatic in the background. Mac Voices listeners and viewers get a fully featured no-risk trial at backblaze.com/macvoices. Go right now and see how easy it is to protect yourself from some of the bad things in life. backblaze.com/macvoices. You will only ever regret not doing it. Thanks to Backblaze for supporting Mac Voices. So the first thing, I guess, as part of more of the regular show, now that we've gotten some of that stuff out of the way, we have an event coming up on May 7th, an Apple event, and I'm anxious to see, if anybody has any thoughts. I know there are a million rumors out there. There are a lot of several things that are absolutely expected to be announced. Anybody have any off-the-wall speculation or thoughts on it? Because it is Tuesday, May 7th, so that means that only a few hours after it wraps, we'll be here dissecting it and going through it. But I don't know if we want to waste a whole lot of time here, but at the same time, thoughts on it?
Although it
I don't
is
think we could get
7 a.m. Pacific time, so 10 p.m., 10 a.m. Eastern, so we'll have a little extra time to digest it. But I would say, the obvious thing is the iPad and the Apple Pencil. I mean, that was kind of a given with the logo. But I think off the wall, it's hard to say. I mean, maybe they're going to be M4 processors. That's possible on the Pros. I mean, there's going to be a number of crazy things. The rumors have been rampant, like you said.
Jim?
I was just going to say, I don't think we can get any crazier than M4 processors and iPads. That would be so wacky, but
yeah.
I think we're going to get introduced to Siri's sister.
Okay.
And,
The what?
and Siri's sister will understand a lot more.
Oh, Siri, sister.
Okay.
It's the Siri that everybody wanted to date, but is unobtainable. Uh, I, I I have been waiting for this event for weeks because there were some early reports that it was going to come out in March, and now we're into April, and we're headed into May. It's still not there. And I went, as I mentioned on a previous episode, and sold out all of my old iPads so I could get the brand spanking new iPad. And Tuesday, I am in Washington, D.C. all day in a meeting. And what makes it even worse is I'm running the meeting. So I can't even scope out while somebody else is in it what's going on. So I am extremely frustrated. But looking forward to getting my hands on some new product around the iPad range.
So at the moment, you're completely iPadless, Marty?
I am iPadless, and dare I say, I picked up a Samsung tablet.
No,
How dare you?
kick him off, Chuck.
Say it ain't so.
It was cheap, and I regret the purchase at this point. But
Painful.
it was something what David said a couple of weeks ago that he's like really enjoying. He does the Android thing, and it seems there's some things he likes about it. And so I was just padless, and that felt terrible.
Going in the drawer.
Marty, I bought a Fire tablet a while ago because I needed it for some testing and some writing projects I was working on. And it became an experiment in a way, because at the time my iPad Mini was dying, and so I thought, well, it's about the same size. Maybe this will be a viable alternative to replacing the iPad Mini. Spoiler: I bought a new iPad Mini.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to see an M4 in these things. There's really, that's tempting and it's sexy because there's not a lot from what's been presented already that's going to make people want to upgrade. So the M4 might tempt some folks to continue to do that, but I would be really surprised if the chip made it into that.
And that's one of the hot rumors. That seems to be an alleged selling point, along with the screen, the OLED screen. So again, we'll find out. At this point, it's
a new keyboard.
Yeah, that seems to be a rumor there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if they change the form factor at all, there almost has to be a new keyboard. So
right.
Pardon me. So we will be May 7th. We'll be doing MacVoices Live that night, and we will then dig into a whole lot more specifics about what was announced and find out how soon Marty will be ordering his.
Well, Chuck, I'm going to throw a prediction in.
And Marty's going to be in a meeting.
If Apple does not release an iPad Pro with an M4 processor, we will be seeing articles about how Apple completely failed with the new models.
Jeff, you're spot on, and you're. I know you're baiting me. I'm not going to go there, but
I'm also right.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. So.
There was articles too in Macworld that said that Apple's crazy for thinking about even considering putting an M4 in the iPad. So you got both sides of it.
So no matter what they do, Apple's going to get bagged on for the new iPad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. David, I saw that article that what sense does it make to have it in an iPad before a Mac? Yeah. And it's like you guys are missing the point. If the iPad is the future, then why wouldn't you put the M4 in it, and give it all the power that you need, and then if you need to play a little catch up, you play catch up in software.
I know the answer to that.
Oh, please.
the iPad isn't the future.
Well, okay, that's one way to look at it. Yeah, I know we've had that discussion. We're not going to go there tonight, but
So do you suspect the delays would not just the screen, but maybe also getting the chips?
Are you talking to me?
Anybody?
What do you mean delays?
Well, originally it was going to be pushed out earlier, and then they started talking about the lack of ability to produce enough OLED screens for it, so it got pushed out to a May release. And I wonder if along with that was the potential for the M4 chips.
I'm sorry, did I miss an Apple announcement in March?
He hoped for one.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's a ridiculous standard. Yeah, they didn't meet the schedule that some rumor people set. That's just that's crazy.
and this
Well,
and
I'm on the crazy bus then.
well, and this is again for the 100th time. This is why we detest rumors, because they set false expectations, they set false timelines, and then to Jeff's point, almost no matter what Apple ends up doing, they failed. They failed somebody because they did it. They failed somebody else because they didn't do it. So who knows? Who knows?
Yep.
Anybody having any trouble with resetting their Apple password? This seemed to be a thing. I haven't experienced it, but a number of people have, and also some journalists have as well, because it's showing up in the tech press. Anybody here experience this issue?
Yeah, I did. It showed up of all things on my Vision Pro. I upgraded the software on Vision Pro, and the next thing I knew, when I put it back on again, it was asking me to update my Apple ID. And I thought, well, maybe that's a glitch that I just ran into. And frankly, I don't upgrade my Apple ID password enough. And so I thought, and I bypassed that a lot. So I thought, well, hell, it's time. I didn't realize it was part of a trend that was going on in other places. So yeah, I got hit by it early on.
Well, the only thing, I got an email that said something about, keep your Apple ID safe. But I was never locked out. I was never asked to log into anything. There wasn't even a link in that email. So, I sort of just blew it off as like, okay, Apple's once again reminding people about password security. But I haven't experienced it. So that's one of 6 of us. Anybody else have any of it? No, Jeff, no? Oh, that's
No,
good.
I always get hit with the problems, and except for this time.
Okay.
I say that now and watch. In 5 minutes, I'll be locked out of all my devices.
Yeah.
It
So
sounds like Webb was unhappy.
I'm sorry, Eric.
It sounds like Webb was unhappy in the.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I missed it. He's his password hell. Okay. Webb is in the chat room. He couldn't be here tonight. So Webb, if you want to expound on that, we'll let everyone know. But that doesn't sound good.
Hey, Chuck, several of the articles that I read felt almost like Apple apologist pieces. Like, it's not that big of a deal. You just make a new password and you're fine. No, it's a huge deal, because when you log out of your Apple ID, it hoses so many things. And getting everything back in sync is a total pain in the butt. And if you've been using app-specific passwords, all of those are shot, and you have to make new app-specific passwords. And it is a major pain in the butt for a lot of people.
Jeff, there's no doubt about it, because I've had to change my Apple password, and you don't really realize how integrated you are into Apple services until you have to do that. And then it's like, oh man, there's a lot of stuff to go through. But Apple, of course, the press is saying that they're uncharacteristically quiet about this.
No, they seem pretty characteristically quiet.
Well, I guess the good news is it doesn't look like there's anything phishing related here or anything like that. So it appears to be a genuine glitch somewhere. That's the way it appears, as opposed to some other situations where it's clear that somebody's trying to gain something from you, like the people that keep trying to reset my Facebook password.
Yeah, still isn't working. I keep trying, Chuck.
Good. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for self-identifying. Webb came back. First of all, he said there's storms there. So Webb, keep your head down. And he said new password and what Jeff said. So I guess Webb is going through that whole process.
That just sucks.
Which may be why he's not here tonight.
And it's all the third-party apps that you use having to re-log into those. It took up most of my day. I don't want to say I spent my whole day doing it, but every time I opened a new device, it was like, okay, I got to jump through these hoops again.
Yeah, and then you also have to go and double check all the settings that you had for apps and services that rely on iCloud. For example, I do not use photos on iCloud.
Mm-hmm.
But when you log out of all your devices and log back in again, there's a high probability that's turned on by default, which then screws up your photo management if you don't rely on that. And
I've seen it in messages, basically, where that login, log out is affected messaging.
Yep.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.